Imagine a world untouched, a planet teeming with life, but completely devoid of human presence. What did Earth look like before us? Let's rewind the clock, not just by centuries or millennia, but by millions of years, to explore the incredible landscapes and bizarre creatures that once dominated our world. Our journey begins in the Cenozoic era, long after the dinosaurs vanished. Let's start around 50 million years ago. During the Eocene epoch, the planet was a hothouse. There were no polar ice caps, and lush, tropical forests stretched from pole to pole. Palm trees grew in what is now Alaska, and crocodiles swam in the Arctic. The continents were still drifting towards their current positions. North America and Europe were still intermittently connected, and India was on a collision course with Asia, a slow-motion impact that would eventually create the Himalayas. The air was thick and humid, filled with the buzzing of insects and the calls of strange, early mammals. Imagine forests so dense and vast they make the Amazon look like a park. This was a world of giants, not dinosaurs, but giant mammals. There were hippo-like creatures called Coryphodon, and early primates, our distant ancestors, were just beginning to scamper through the treetops. As we move forward to about 20 million years ago, in the Miocene epoch, the world began to cool and dry out. The vast global forests started to retreat, giving way to a new kind of environment, grasslands. This was a game changer. The rise of grasses created new opportunities for life. Great herds of grazing animals evolved to take advantage of this abundant food source. Picture vast plains, much like the modern Serengeti, but populated with creatures straight out of a fantasy novel. Three-toed horses, smaller than today's breeds, galloped across the landscape. There were giant, tusked thunder beasts called brontothers, and fearsome predators like the Amphision, a massive bear dog that was one of the apex hunters of its time. The oceans were also full of life, including the colossal shark, Megalodon, a predator that makes the great white shark look tiny. It was a world of epic migrations and dramatic predator-prey battles, all playing out on a stage of endless grass. Now, let's jump closer to our own time, to the Pleistocene epoch, which began about 2.6 million years ago. You might know this as the Ice Age. This period was defined by dramatic climate swings. Massive ice sheets, sometimes miles thick, would advance from the poles, covering huge parts of North America, Europe, and Asia. Then, they would retreat during warmer interglacial periods. These cycles of ice advancing and retreating carved out the landscapes we know today, creating features like the Great Lakes and the fjords of Norway. When you think of the Ice Age, you probably picture woolly mammoths, and you're right. These magnificent, shaggy elephants roamed in great herds across the cold, dry grasslands known as the Mammoth Steppe. But they were far from alone. This was the age of megafauna, giant animals. Saber-toothed cats, like the famous Smilodon, with their terrifying canine teeth, hunted large prey. Giant ground sloths, some as big as elephants, ambled through the forests of the Americas. In Europe, there were giant deer with antlers spanning 12 feet, and cave lions larger than any big cat alive today. Australia had its own cast of giants, including Diprotodon, a rhino-sized wombat, and Megalania, a giant monitor lizard that was the top predator. During these glacial periods, sea levels were much lower because so much water was locked up in the ice. This exposed land bridges, connecting continents that are now separated by water. Britain was connected to mainland Europe, and a land bridge called Beringia connected Asia to North America. These bridges allowed animals, and eventually the very first humans, to migrate across the globe. Imagine walking from what is now Siberia all the way to Alaska. Even during the warmer periods between the ice advances, the world was different. Huge forests would reclaim the land where glaciers once stood. The animal life was still incredible. Straight-tusked elephants, giant beavers the size of black bears, and herds of wild horses and bison covered the landscapes. This was the world that our earliest human ancestors, like Homo erectus and the Neanderthals, stepped into. They weren't shaping the world, they were a small part of it, trying to survive in a land ruled by giants and extreme climate shifts. They would have witnessed volcanic eruptions that dwarfed anything in recorded history. They would have seen vast lakes form and disappear. They lived through a world that was constantly changing, a dynamic and often violent planet. The sounds would have been different, too. The trumpeting of mammoths, the roar of a cave lion, the sheer silence of a world without engines, cities, or highways. So, before humans became the dominant force on this planet, Earth was a world of extremes. It was a world of hothouse jungles, of endless grasslands, and of continent-spanning ice sheets. It was a world ruled by gigantic mammals, formidable predators, and dramatic, ever-changing climates. It was a wild, untamed, and magnificent planet, a world that existed for millions of years before our story even began. Exploring this deep past gives us a profound sense of humility and a greater appreciation for the long, incredible history of life on Earth. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations into our planet's amazing past. See you next time.